Imagine asking a trusted intelligence system a simple question and receiving an answer that sounds confident, authoritative, and complete. Then imagine discovering that the answer is wrong. Not a small error, but a fabricated fact, a made-up quote, or a phantom reference. Sounds scary? It should. Because this is the dark side of today's generative AI. The phenomenon known as hallucination, when an AI gives plausible-sounding but false information, is no longer obscure. It's a real challenge for creators, developers, enterprises, and anyone using AI. And if you ignore it, you risk being misled, misinformed, or even undermining your credibility. Welcome back to TechWise, the channel where we decode the future of AI, science, and technology shaping our world. As we explore the breakthroughs, the wonders, the disruptions, we must also shine light on the pitfalls. Because the more powerful AI becomes, the more important it is to use it with wisdom and integrity. Today we're diving deep into how to avoid AI hallucination, what it is, why it happens, how it threatens trust, and most importantly, how you and your team, or you as a creator, can guard against it. Let's begin with definition. In the world of artificial intelligence, especially generative AI such as large language models, LLMs, and diffusion image models, a hallucination refers to output that is incorrect, fabricated, or otherwise disconnected from factual reality. It is not simply a misspelling or a minor factual slip. Often it's an assertion that appears believable but is fundamentally unsupported. A citation to a non-existent paper, an invented statistic, a creative description of an event that never took place. To grasp this, imagine a model that, when prompted, "What year did the first human land on Mars?" replies, "In 2032 in the Ares expedition led by Commander Lee." Except none of that is true. Yet it is plausible in tone. This is what we mean by hallucination, plausible but incorrect. Why does this matter? Because as AI tools become more integrated into our workflows, writing, decision support, education, content creation, the possibility that they present false information as fact becomes a serious risk. Users may take the output at face value. A creator might publish content based on it. A business might deploy it for decision-making. And the consequences multiply. Yet the term hallucination is not perfect. Some researchers argue it anthropomorphizes the model. Machines don't see things that aren't there in the human sense. But regardless of semantics, the behavior is real and the implication is clear. Models can confidently produce wrong information. It helps to understand what's happening under the hood. These models, often trained on massive volumes of text, or images, scraped from the internet, learn statistical patterns. They learn what word or token comes next, given a context, or what image features correlate with a label. They do not have a built-in world model or an understanding in the sense humans do. Because of that, they can generate output that looks correct without being correct. There are several root causes. First, data limitations. The training data may be incomplete, biased, or inconsistent. Maybe a concept appears rarely in the data, or the representation is skewed. The model then fills in gaps with plausible but unsupported detail. Second, lack of grounding. These systems often lack access to real-time knowledge, facts, or updated databases. They rely on statistical correlation rather than verifying truth. Third, optimization objectives. Many models are trained to produce fluent, coherent outputs and are rewarded for appearing correct or helpful, not necessarily for being factually accurate. In other words, they are trained for ease and plausibility, not truth. Fourth, architectural and statistical constraints. Some recent research suggests that hallucinations are mathematically inevitable under certain conditions for calibrated models. In effect, there is a lower bound of hallucination risk. All of these come together to produce a system that can hallucinate, no matter how advanced. It's also possible for hallucinations to occur in modalities beyond text: image generation, audio generation, video. A model might see a shape that resembles a hand where no hand exists, or produce a plausible image that misplaces a limb or a perspective. So hallucination is not limited to one form. It is a general risk for generative models. In short, these systems are powerful but not infallible. They mimic patterns, they don't verify truths. Now let's bring this into your world. On TechWise, we talk about how artificial intelligence and technology reshape our lives, the tools we use, the content we consume, the decisions we make. Hallucinations strike at the trust layer of that world. If we can't trust that our tools or the outputs they deliver are accurate, then their value diminishes. And for creators, for professionals using AI, for anyone depending on this technology, the stakes are real. Imagine you're a content creator using an AI assistant to help write your video script. The assistant gives you a fact, you include it, the video goes live, and later someone points out that fact was false. Credibility is lost. Or imagine you work in a business relying on an AI system to summarize legal documents. That system hallucinates a case citation that doesn't exist. Risk escalates. Or as a consumer, you ask an AI chatbot about your health or finances, and it confidently offers advice based on made-up data. The threats range from embarrassment to actual damage. Trust is the currency that underpins meaningful human-machine interaction. The more generative AI becomes integrated into workflows, the more earning that trust counts. And if hallucinations undermine trust, they undercut the entire structure of the value chain. That means our discussion isn't academic, it's practical. Because whether you're building, using, or consuming AI-mediated content, you need strategies to avoid being caught off guard. Before we go into how to avoid hallucinations, we must recognize how they manifest. One of the most striking features is that the output often feels correct. That's what makes it dangerous. A few patterns you should watch for. Description of a document or quote that seems plausible but cannot be found when you check. For example, an AI generating a scientific paper citation that looks legitimate, but leads nowhere when you try to verify. Many studies have found this behavior. Another scenario, the use of numbers or statistics that sound realistic but cannot be verified. Or a model generating a synthetic example of data, framing it as fact. Likewise, in visual models you might see images that appear correct, but on closer inspection misrender details, anatomy, or context. Then there is the snowball effect. Once a model produces a wrong answer, continuing the conversation often magnifies the error. The model builds on its own hallucination as though it were truth. Because of these risks, the ability to spot hallucinatory content becomes a key skill. For creators and technologists, being aware of how hallucinations hide behind fluency is important. The output might be grammatically perfect, the tone confident, but the substance wrong. That dissonance is a red flag. In a world flooded with content and tools, the ability to discern that discrepancy gives you an edge. Now we move into the meat of the topic, how to avoid AI hallucination. This is the part where your audience needs actionable insight. I'll break it into segments, though, in a flowing narrative, not bullet lists, so the story remains natural. One of the first steps is to craft your prompts intentionally. When you ask an AI model to generate content, the way you ask influences the quality. If your prompt is vague, the model wanders. If it lacks context, the model fills in gaps, sometimes incorrectly. So you must treat the prompt as part of your design. Give the model clear structure, define the domain, set boundaries. When you define constraints, provide only information verifiable in peer-reviewed sources or list sources and indicate uncertainty, you reduce the open field where hallucination hides. Once the model gives you output, verification becomes your next line of defense. No matter how polished the answer, you must treat it like a draft. Ask, can this claim be found in trusted sources? Does the citation exist? If the model cites research, check the DOI, check the journal, check if the authors exist. If the model gives statistics, verify the source and context. As discussed, many hallucinations manifest as citations to non-existent studies. Approaching AI output with a mindset of "let's verify" shifts you from passive consumer to active guardian of truth. Beyond prompt design and verification, organizations building or deploying AI must invest in architecture and processes. One technique gaining traction is retrieval augmented generation, RAG, a design where the AI system first fetches relevant data from a trusted knowledge base and then generates its answer anchored in that data. Work by OpenAI and others shows that RAG can significantly reduce hallucination rates by grounding the model in real sources rather than relying purely on statistical pattern generation. Implementing human-in-the-loop review is another must. Before releasing AI-generated content, especially in high-stakes domains, have a specialist review it. From summarized legal documents to generated scripts, a human checker stays the final gate. Moreover, monitoring systems should track hallucination indicators, unexpected citations, unverifiable claims, internal inconsistencies. Some new research even builds error detection algorithms to spot when models veer into fabricating content. Even though total elimination may be impossible, managing the risk is non-negotiable if you're using AI seriously. At this point, we've covered definition, causes, relevance for creators and technologists, how to recognize hallucinations, and 2 major prevention strategies. In the full extended version, I will expand further with case studies, tool-specific advice, e.g. using LLMs as creators, enterprises, developers, ethical considerations, and future outlook, how hallucination may evolve and how to stay ahead. I'll also connect directly with you as a creator on TechWise, because if you're making content about AI and technology, you must both understand and communicate these risks to your audience.